Hi everyone, Mark Merrill with Firm. Today's program is rated for mature audiences from ages 25 to 50 per our recommendations here at Fairness in Reporting Media. Thank you for your understanding. This disclaimer will be mentioned at the beginning of this program when it's posted. It's about transgenders and science deniers. The entire debate about transgender individuals in women's sports has become a very intriguing but volatile subject over the past several months in the early beginning of the second term of the Trump administration, with many lawsuits and accusations from both men and women, biologically speaking, including those who say they represent the LGBTQ community all across the United States. Now, that being said, today's program will be brief but delicately presented to our general American population so that all biological and non-binary people can decide for themselves how this topic should and could affect American culture and society now and in the immediate future. Thank you. Mark Merrill for Firm. I want to start out, as you see the picture behind me, ladies and gentlemen, is from an article by Barbara Kay, who wrote this back in 2023 for the Epoch Times. It says, "When they say we're coming for your children, believe them." And Ms. Kay starts out pretty much this way, and we're only going to read a few excerpts from it because of the nature of the topic for our mature audience today, ladies and gentlemen. She starts out by saying, for years, Canadians have proved amenable to demands for basic rights, but also to entitlements for those who identify seriously as trans, non-binary, or queer. The entitlements, even those encroaching on women's rights, are supported by government and most media, I think as most of us already know, extend to all our cultural, therapeutic, and social institutions. One of the witnesses of the groundswell of citizen resistance on this particular topic, where queer theory is a covered form or a promoted form of Marxism that rejects sexuality, including the notion of childhood innocence, is systematically imposed on vulnerable minds with no involvement of parental consent. Recent video clips of naked pride marches and LGBTQ spin doctors claiming that the words are taken out of context when it comes to drag queen story hour. What acceptable context encouraging children to twerk? Without going into any detail, folks, majority of Canadians feel that such sexualized messaging to our young children is far too much for them to bear or even understand to begin with. Some are calling it grooming, building on children's trust in men with an agenda that is far beyond teaching about diversity and inclusion. One organization that was formed back in 1974, says Ms. Kay, was the Pedophile Information Exchange, or PIE, a group that advocated for the abrogation of the age of sexual consent, branded gay rights activism and child abuse lobbying as closely entwined goals. It was founded part of, believe it or not, the Scottish Minorities Group, the first LGBT rights organization in Scotland. For 10 years, PIE openly campaigned throughout the United Kingdom to normalize pedophilia and as legally and culturally acceptable a practice. Here in the United States, folks, PIE's alter ego is the North American Man-Boy Love Association, or NAMBLA, although radically diminished in numbers, still active at this particular writing in 2023. One lawyer dubbed it as a trade school for pedophiles. A couple of more items from Ms. Kay's article, folks. NAMBLA's website states that, true to its philosophy, its goal remains to end the extreme oppression of men and boys in mutually consensual relationships by educating the general public on the benevolent nature of man-boy love through cooperation with lesbian, gay, feminist, and other liberation movements. When the only people publicly promoting pedophilia self-identify as gay, the fact that they are a subset of LGB and not the norm might be lost on ordinary people. Challenged to admit that sex is shocking to a child, one of the men said, "Not if they're properly educated." More like indoctrinated, wouldn't you say? We would at Firm. Properly educated today under the rubric of queer theory, which doesn't recognize any boundaries of traditional sexual morality, decency, or age appropriateness, would be exposure of children against the wishes of many parents. But with the blessing of pedagogical elites to what used to be known as porn, such as the graphic memoir Gender Queer. Thus, the laudable but alas, so far marginal organization Gays Against Groomers was formed. More recently, we don't have a date, to counter the damage queer theory is inflicting on LGB's hard-earned brand of unthreatening normalcy. Well, they know how to really word it, don't they, folks? The indoctrination, special ways of trying to get to your children, our children, as you can see here, all over the place. Sickening is what it is. But we'll finish up Ms. Kay's article before we get on to another one. And it's a more positive note on it, ladies and gentlemen, of a book that she wrote. And we'll get to that title and some information from it as well on the website. The Drag Queen Story Hour is meant as a model for learning not only about queer lives, but about how to live that way. They wrote, "The future is their domain. The here and now is a prison house." Translation, the traditional family home is a prison for children. It may be that Drag Queen Story Hour is family-friendly in the sense that it's accessible and inviting to families with children, but it is less a sanitizing force than it is a preparatory introduction to alternate modes of kinship. Translation, we are your children's new family. Now here, folks, we're going to get to the final portion of this topic, transgenders, science deniers. And our program is rated for mature audiences only, folks, from ages 25 to 50, per recommendation of Fairness in Reporting Media. And yours truly, Mark Merrill. The book that we're talking about here, folks, is written by Barbara Kay with a co-author. And it is titled Unsporting: How Trans Activism and Science Denial Are Destroying Sport. Now, this book came out back in 2021. And the outline of it on the website, goodreads.com, and we'll provide that for you. The face of female sports is changing. It got a 4 out of 5 star rating, by the way. Radical gender activists are using a pseudo-scientific theory of human biology to hijack sports and subvert the long-established concepts of fair play, forcing women and girls to risk their safety, pushing them aside for male athletes, using the excuse of inclusivity. Anyone who questions this dogma risks being branded as a transphobe, which you've heard before, and having their social and professional lives canceled. Enough already. In the new book, Unsporting, How Trans Activism and Science Denial Are Destroying Sport, former Canadian track champion Linda Blade, and of course, also Barbara Kay, who is also a renowned National Post columnist, examine the dangers of gender ideology in sports. They document the attack on biological facts upon which the level playing field of sports rests. Tackling issues have few people saying the courage or have the courage to say out loud, Unsporting shows the harm inflicted on female athletes and identifies the institutions driving this movement. What does the future hold for sports if biological reality is ignored? Ms. Blade answers that question and concludes with a reasonable plan to reverse the course. That information, folks, will be provided in our footnotes and comments at the end of our program today. Thank you for joining us on this special program, Transgenders and Science Deniers. This particular program will be highlighted with a disclaimer, and we'll read it again, that this program is rated for mature audiences from the ages of 25 to 50, per our recommendation, Fairness in Reporting Media, and myself, Mark Merrill. As always, for more information and more podcasts that you want to see with us, folks, it's always here. Rumble.com/FairnessMedia1. We're on YouTube and Twitter, and our emails are always available for you to chime in and give us your thoughts and your recommendations and your criticisms, if necessary, at fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com, fairnessinreportingmedia@gmail.com. Stay safe, everyone. Peace to all.